to the Troy Planning Commission meeting for February 14th, 2018. Happy Valentine's Day from all of us to all of you. The first item on the agenda, let's take the roll.
Mr. Cappers.
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
Mr. Wolke.
Here.
Mrs. Mahan. Here. Mr. Titterington.
Here.
Mrs. Sneed.
Here.
Mr. McGarry.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, there have been transferred to all the parties here the minutes of our January 10 meeting. Are there any additions, exceptions, deletions of those minutes?
I move they be approved.
Is the motion approved? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McGarry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, they stand accepted. Staff have a report on the first item on the agenda, the Historic District application of 10 West Race Street.
Yes, we do. Thank you. I'm filling in for Shannon Brandon today for the report. We did reach out to the applicant, who is Jennifer Lambert of Sign Dynamics, who has not attended. We did ask for the owner or the applicant to be in attendance in case discussion ensued on the sign. The request is to reface a freestanding sign at 10 West Ray Street, which is the former UDF property, which is now the Troy Quick Mart. The building, essentially where the sign is, the building is actually not within the historic district. Just where the sign is located, it actually, the line splits the lot. So it's interesting that the building is not with the freestanding sign that it advertises is within. It is a grandfathered sign, a legally non-conforming grandfathered sign. It has not been vacated for 6 months. Therefore, they can reface it per the zoning code requirements. Of course, it's in the historic district, which is why it's coming before you today. The colors they are requesting is PMS 200 fire red and white. And I believe Sue has a sample of the material and the color, which is being passed around. And staff hesitantly recommends approval of the sign, and I say that for several reasons. One, it is kind of unique that the sign is in the historic district and the building that it advertises is not, so we do not have control over the building, at least at this level. We were informed when we asked about the signage to the owner that they wanted to have on the front of their building, which is now just all white across, they wanted to have a red Troy Quick Mart sign, very similar to the way UDF had United Dairy Farmers in red, and it's why the sign is red. We discussed it being pretty plain, just a red and white sign that said Troy's Quick Mart, not much to it, no logos, no graphics, anything of that nature. But once again, when we discussed it, we were pretty much split at the staff level, but we decided since it was on the edge of the historic district, that the UDF building that it advertises is not historically significant. It was actually built in 1974. We went ahead and recommended approval, and we anxiously await the comments and discussion from the Planning Commission.
Why was there a split in opinion?
I think some of us, we determined that it was not very supportive of what we want to see downtown, but knowing that it's on the edge of downtown, in a historic district, I think some of us wanted to see something with a little more spunk and pizzazz to it that kind of, maybe those are bad words to use, but something that maybe complemented more of the historic district and less of just a plain sign. So,
What does PMS stand for?
I do not know.
Any other questions of staff?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Tiverton.
So I share the hesitancy of the staff that is not really in favor of this sign, only because even though it's on the edge of the downtown historic district boundary, it is in fact a location that's pretty highly visible. It's across the street from an iconic building that in the next year is probably going to go on the market and be repurposed, that being the Troy Daily News, at least from all indications. It's one property away from a multi-million-dollar investment that was just put in. If you look just south of it along the same side of the road, you have some very impressive larger properties as well. And even though they may not be part of the historic downtown, they certainly could be just as easily recognized as being part of the downtown. So I guess when I saw this, I was underimpressed, underwhelmed. I'm not sure what a spunky sign would look like. I'm not sure that's quite the word you were looking for, but maybe it was. But I would really like to see something. I understand if they want to go red and white, if that's their theme, if they want to carry that through. I think anything they do to that building will freshen it up. But with the sign being right on the corner and being a pole sign, I'd like to see something a little bit more than what they presented to us.
And I will note that staff did reach out to the applicant and the owners with these concerns and asked if they would like to revise the sign as opposed to taking it forward, and they wish to move forward with this sign. So, just
They wish to move forward.
correct.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, most certainly.
When you said this was an existing non-conforming use, on what legal ground would we be if we said we didn't like the design or the color of their sign?
That's certainly within your authority to do that. I was just pointing out that the sign itself, the bracket and the size, because right now it doesn't comply with our current codes. If it didn't exist now, they could not put this sign up. It's because it was in existence to older codes, which did allow the size, that it could remain and be the size it is today.
But we're not approving the zoning permit, we're approving an aesthetic,
That's correct.
So
historic.
it is on
It's-
aesthetic grounds
yeah.
only?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Is the word ugly in the zoning code anywhere?
Spunky is,
I'm I think the Supreme Court mentioned it's in the eye of the beholder, you know it when you see it, that kind of thing.
I think I see it.
I'm surprised that Miami Grad doesn't like this.
I didn't say I didn't like the
It's not that
colors,
bright.
it's just,
Keep in mind, folks, that this is a historic district application. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Terrington, about trying to keep pace with what we would like to see down there, but aren't we charged with seeing whether or not this sign is comparable to some historical basis in that area? And I think what we look for is color and offensive language on the sign, or graphics, or what, but I find the color too dramatic, and I don't know that the color would have been available that far back in, as far as historic applications. Is there anything else in the historic district that is this bright?
I don't know if there's anything in existence right now. I do know when we looked up the colors for UDF, that was very similar red to the bottom of the sign where it said farmers. It doesn't come out very well on here, but when you look at it online, the logo, it does print out to be a very similar red.
but in that
Of course,
case,
that was a third of the
a
sign.
third of
It
the sign.
wasn't the full
Yes,
sign.
have other colors, tone it down.
That's what
I guess, well, I guess my position is that I can't dictate what name they put on the sign. I think we can dictate the color if the color is not acceptable to us in a historic district. And I, for one, don't like this bright red. Some toned-down color, and I see the UDF sign, looks like they used browns and oranges, something a little more, without as much spunk, as far as the color is concerned. But I don't know, what says the rest of you?
I'd like to see something a little more subdued, that would be my vote.
I agree.
But if we say something about the sign, are they still able to use, if this is their corporate color, I don't know if they have that on the building? So that the sign and the building would not
Yeah, what I would
go together?
could suggest is that this could be tabled. We could have a discussion with them. Certainly, they chose not to be in attendance, even though we asked them to. Maybe this is a way to get them in here for a discussion with the planning commission, so we can answer maybe more questions you may have.
I would make the motion to table.
I'll
Motion
second.
table, and there's a
I'll
second,
second.
Mr. Sneed. No discussion. Please call the roll.
Mayor,
Yes, the table.
Mr. Wolke,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes,
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed,
Yes.
Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Mr. Cappers.
Yes.
Okay, the motion was passed by unanimous vote. The item is tabled.
Okay, there's another matter on the agenda. Does staff want to talk about the proposed amendment to the zoning code?
Yes, we do. Thank you. This was discussed with our law director, Grant Kerber, and this provides language that adds additional criteria for consideration and revises the BZA's responsibilities regarding variance requests that they hear. Essentially, several times you'll see appeals go to the Ohio Supreme Court, and they always refer back to Duncan versus the Village of Middlefield. And when you research those court cases, it usually comes back to 7 factors that the Ohio Supreme Court goes back to determine what a practical difficulty is. So what we have done is use those 7 factors, implemented those into the BZA requirements for a variance, and then we added some of our current ones that were in addition to that. And what this is strictly so they can determine what is a practical difficulty. The other change in the language, which is in front of you, talks about right now, for a variance to be granted, it had to meet all the criteria in the affirmative. And the argument that we discussed was that given the Duncan factors, if you will, they could still meet some of those and not all of them and have a variance request. And so we discussed this with the law director, and he is recommending that these changes be implemented into the zoning code.
Mr. Wilkie, do you have any thoughts as our appointee to the BZA?
Well, if the law director feels that this is what the Supreme Court's requiring, I suppose we need to go along with it.
I didn't find any of these unreasonable. Any other comments or questions from the staff? I'll entertain a motion.
We have to start with the public hearing.
Oh, I am sorry. Yes, we have to determine whether or not we want to use a discussion item as during a public hearing. Is there any idea that you guys want to have a public hearing on this matter?
I move that we not have a public hearing.
There's a motion and a second by Mr. Titterton. Any further discussion on this issue? Please call the roll.
Where yes means no.
And it just means no.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mr. Cappers?
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, motion is passed. The commission will not have a public hearing.
Now, as far as the recommendation of council, does anyone have a motion?
I'll move that we recommend council approve this, or send a recommendation on to council.
Motion to recommend the council to approve of the language. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mrs. Snead?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mr. Cappers?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Wolke?
Yes.
It is approved.
Staff have anything else to come before the commission today?
Nothing further, thank you.
Commission members have anything to say or comment
Just a question. I guess I'll ask it on the record. The comprehensive plan, I think we're pretty much ready to package it all together and have the whole thing approved by the planning commission, aren't we?
Yeah, we were working towards that. We didn't know if you wanted to do anything with the branding, since that was a portion of the MKSK study, if that wanted to come.
The branding's not really the planning commission, I wouldn't think, but it does call to mind the fact that we're adding the complete streets and the MKSK initiatives. We've always said that would be part of the comprehensive plan. The branding component, that's more the community logo, but
if MSK alters any of the comprehensive plan, I'd like to see redlined what the changes were.
this would be kind of a supplement as part of it
Be an
in the
appendix.
development.
Just an
Section.
indication that we've hired MSK to do this, and here it
And
is.
here's the initiative, and having it folded into the comprehensive plan. MKSK did not look at changing any of the plan itself.
I just want to make, this is supposed to be a planning document, obviously, and I know MSK put a lot of work into it, we paid a lot of money for it, but I just don't agree with some of the provisions. So I just want to make sure that we're not adopting them as part of the plan development, plan document itself.
Do we want to do anything with the parking study and then throw in the parking and traffic study that we had?
No, I wouldn't think so. Those are not long-term planning things. Those are functional, short-term. We got to do them this year.
We didn't have them in, I just want to make sure you didn't want those added in. Okay.
Okay, good question. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wolke. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stand adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.